So it's either irrelevant to it because yeah, it's either irrelevant or it's just a restatement. So either way, it doesn't support it.
Yeah. I always found like the idea that something can be made like from nothing, the most convincing way to unpack that is not just that there's some like that like if there's some agent that somehow does it, then everything's cool. It's like the worry is like, well, I've got this like a ball, right? Like a golf ball or something, and I made it, but before that, the stuff it was made out of didn't exist. Like I made it out of nothing. I
You just
didn't
said
have
like
any
let there be a
resources.
ball.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what's confusing about it. It's not like all the questions about that go away when you say, yeah, but it was like Gandalf that did it, so he had magical powers, and that means I'm still like, what do you mean out of nothing? Like no pre-existing material, and then there was some. Like, how did that happen? I mean, maybe the energy was like sucked out of the quantum vacuum and like blah blah blah, but at least there's some kind of mechanism with it. But the problem with the Christian view is that like it okay, so there's some disembodied mind. Put all my various worries about that to one side. What does he do? He makes something out of nothing in the kind of materio sense. Like there's no pre-existing material that it's reshaped out of. He didn't like take a chunk of his own body and like mold that, and that's what the world is made out of. There was no pre-existing material. He just summons it into being out of nothing. That's the problematic version of creation ex nihilo for me. It's not so much like could something go through that without there being a guy to wave the magic wand in the first place. I mean, like that's also kind of weird if there isn't even someone waving a magic wand. But like, that's not what's the difficult thing is like the material coming out of they're not
Yeah.
a thing existing, but not being like a reshaping of prior existing material, right?
Yeah, and that goes to a general problem for some of the defenses of the first premise of the Kalam that, the
Mm,
causal principle. It's like if they were to succeed, they'd also plausibly justify alternative principles that are either unfriendly to the Kalam or unfriendly to theism. So something along the lines of, hey, like uh, every material object that begins to exist is comes from some pre-existent things or stuff, like
yeah,
in the manner of a material cause.
exactly.
Now that seems to be intuitive, as you were just pointing out. Like that's eminently intuitive, and I would argue that like some of the intuitions behind from nothing comes like are behind that like support that principle as well. So it's like it's supported by intuition, it's supported by induction in our inductive experience that is universally confirmed.
Of
It's supported
course.
by
Yeah.
it's a really nice simple explanation of our uniform inductive experience of it. You can go through like the alleged things that prove the Kalam's causal principle, and you can basically just slightly tweak them and say they equally apply to this other principle. So that if you
Yeah.
accept the Kalam principle on the basis of that, it seems as though you should also accept this alternative principle on the basis of that. But of course, if you accept that principle, well, then at least traditional theism on which you have Christian ex nihilo is false. So I mean that's something that's worth keeping in mind whenever people go through justifications of the Kalam, or the Kalam's first premise. It's like just think: can you just turn those justifications for that principle into justifications for Kalam unfriendly or theism unfriendly principles?
Mm. Um, okay, well, look, I think it's a good place to stop because it's getting up to 6 o'clock now, and